right. Hello. My name is Yusian, and I'm part of the MDL sponsorship team. I'll just be introducing you to our next speaker, Margaret, a UX researcher at CIBC Bank, and she will be talking about the impact of UX research at the bank. And now I'll just pass it on to Margaret to begin her presentation.
Thank you, Yusian. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is, as she mentioned, my name is Margaret. I'm a UX researcher at CIBC. I'm from the Digital Strategy and Innovation team, and today I'll be going over the impact of user experience research in the bank. And to begin, I'll be going over a brief history of what internet banking is to help give you some context on what the origin of online banking is, followed by the role of UX research in the bank, and last, the impact of UX research at the bank, and also leave some time at the end for some questions and answers. So before I begin, I'd like you to imagine a world. Imagine a world where there's no online shopping. That means no more Cyber Monday, Amazon or Uber Eats orders at 12 a.m. And this also includes not being able to purchase any online services like your subscription to Netflix, HBO, or Spotify. Also imagine not being able to pay for your bills online or check your account balances, or not being able to make wire transfers or e-transfers or direct deposits. And forget about your mobile wallet like Apple or Samsung or Google Pay. And with all this in mind, it's kind of scary, isn't it? Now, imagine what our world would have been like if this hadn't happened in the pandemic last year, if we didn't have all these conveniences that we do have. Imagine what our world would have been like today. Now, Mike Mayo, who is a securities analyst at Wells Fargo, said in an interview, "What we're seeing is the greatest acceleration of digital banking in history. What's taken place over the last few months may have taken 2 to 10 years if it were not for the pandemic." So now taking a closer look about what he meant about the acceleration of digital banking. It was actually only 27 years ago, or in 1994, when the first internet banking website was launched in the US by the Stanford Federal Credit Union. Although to some, it may sound like it's pretty old technology in comparison to how long banks have been around. But with the oldest and first bank, I believe dating back to the early or late 1400s, it's still internet banking. It's still relatively new technology, and there's still clearly plenty of room for innovation. And so the world we live in and how we do our banking may change with time, but banks as an institution, it's not going anywhere. Today, we live in a world where making online payments and checking transactions and the entire banking experience is nothing but a click and tap away. Now, you're probably thinking, how does UX research fit into all this? What is the role of UXR or UX research in helping facilitate the digital transformation within the banking industry? I will tell you that I may not be able to speak for all banks, but at CIBC and Canadian banks across Canada, UXR is at the forefront of when informing the innovation of strategy, experience, and design of products and services. Now, as a UX experience researcher, it's my responsibility to identify and understand what our clients' needs are, their behaviors, motivations, pain points are in order to help people save, spend, and invest their money better. So now I'll go through what is UX research in the bank actually. Now, in the bank, UX research helps inform the strategy, design, and innovation of these products and services, such as digital banking products, which are your online, desktop, and mobile digital experience, as well as other various lines of businesses, such as anti-money laundering, client strategy, or digital enablement, which are examples of other teams within the bank that have online products and may engage UX research to help them solve a problem. There's also in-branch experiences, which is your end-to-end in-person experience. So from the moment you walk through your branch doors to the end of completing your task, which could be depositing a check at an ATM, or with a teller, or if you're meeting a financial advisor, or even the environment of the branch that makes you feel the way you do while you wait for your appointment. This could also engage UX research. And last, we have frontline tools, which are the internal applications our employees use in branch or internally within the entirety across the enterprise. Now, to conduct user research, there are some examples of methods that we use and in combination to understand what the client's needs, behaviors, motivations, and pain points are. And in terms of methods, we conduct quantitative research and analyses, which of course depends on the research question and the problem that we're trying to solve for. In contrast, we also do conduct qualitative methods, such as ethnography, diary studies, remote user interviews, yes, there we go. Sorry, it didn't pop up in my second screen. User interviews, as well as heuristic evaluations, concept testing, usability testing, and of course, last card sorting and tree testing. So these are important research methods that we use that can be utilized when conducting research in the bank setting. Of course, there are many more, but what's important to note is how you use a combination of these methods to gain a holistic understanding of what the problem is and what you're trying to solve for. And essentially, all of these allow you to cover all your bases when presenting your findings to stakeholders. Another important thing that we do with UX research at the bank is collaboration. So UX research does not work in silos. We work cross-functionally with designers, other researchers, tech analysts, which are tech developers, or in business, we work with strategists, business analysts, marketing people, product owners, or a specific line of business, which are our stakeholders, like I mentioned, perhaps client strategy or anti-money laundering, that often engage UX research for our help. And so we work together as a team to ensure that when developing a strategy or design for a product or service, we're all aligned on the same page. So this means that collaboration gives the opportunity for UX researchers to showcase the techniques and skills we have to help solve problems. Now, I often think and actually quite say that UX researchers are very similar to detectives. We get called on when there's a mystery or a problem that needs to be solved, and we collect data. Now, this data is evidence, and we synthesize these pieces of information so that we are able to present the big picture and help form solutions. One of my former mentors, or they're still my mentor, but former managers often said that good research sparks great ideas. So it's really important that we conduct research, as it's the foundation of great designs. This leads me to my next point, which is the impact of UX research. Now, before we begin, I'd like to ask the crowd, who do you currently bank with? And you could just pop it into your chat. And if you don't mind mentioning what it is, you could just sit back and see where other people are banking from. All right, so I guess we have a lot of variety here, but I believe it's safe to assume that the majority of you have a bank account. Even if it may not be a Canadian bank, you can still use you probably still use the services of a financial institution, unless of course you like to keep it old school and hide money under your bed, which is not really profitable in that way. But otherwise, when asking who does research impact, you now have a sense of the scale of the problems we try to solve for and how many people our research impacts. Which leads me to my next point, research, of course, also research impacts you, our users. It also impacts our business, which is the bank, and that is by identifying how to improve the experience and services for you, our clients. It would ultimately be better for our business as you would continue to engage our services if we begin to design, or as our research serves you. Last, research also impacts design. So research, design, and content strategy. So as I mentioned, we all work together to influence and inform each other's work to ensure we develop the best experience for you, our clients. So we can conclude that the way that research impacts is that it's very cyclical in a sense. We help our clients. By helping our clients, we help the business. By helping the business, we ultimately need to improve the design. But what we'll do now is dig a little bit deeper and see how exactly research helps each of these sectors. So in terms of clients, research helps clients by designing solutions that meet your needs, your behaviors, your experiences, and your pain points. So which ultimately improves your ability to save, invest, and grow your money. Now, from a business perspective, how does research help? We provide data-driven solutions. We also help reduce the risk of these solutions by testing early, and especially with concept tests or conducting surveys. We also provide success metrics, and we define KPIs. Now, in terms of design, how does research help? We help validate the concept direction. We identify and remove any usability issues, and we also measure design impact using qualitative and quantitative KPIs. And not to say that these are the only ways that research impacts these three sectors, but also these are just examples. And you can also see that in an example that I'll provide. So this is a recent study that I worked on, where I was trying to understand how can we improve the account opening experience for newcomers to Canada. So for this experience, I worked in collaboration with our design innovation team, where I was the lead researcher and conducted a variety of research methods to better understand this target segment, which are our newcomers to Canada. Now, for this research, I conducted secondary research, which could be literature reviews or pulling past data from different reports using market research. And I also launched some surveys. I facilitated research workshops to align our team as well as our stakeholders, which in this case was client strategy, and then used the outputs from the workshop to create a research plan to guide as well as create a script for concept testing. While I cannot share some of the findings with you, I will tell you that the impact of this research did help business design and our potential clients, and that is by validating the project direction, identifying what our clients' needs are, or what are the needs of newcomers to Canada. We also tested the solution early on by conducting concept tests, so that again helped reduce the risk or avoid launch surprises once this product is developed. And we presented the opportunity to increase our client portfolio. So because our clients were newcomers to Canada, by creating or improving how to open their account experience, we were able to basically bridge the gap from the moment that they arrive in Canada to and when they first open an account. And so here on the side, I have an example of what is currently live for our newcomer page on the CIBC personal banking website. It's not exactly what I tested. Of course, I can't share that with you, but this is relatively new, and it's very close to what I was testing for our prototype. Now, in terms of takeaways, oh my gosh, can we go back? Oh, there we go. In terms of takeaways, sorry about that. So now thinking about everything we discussed earlier, what can we take away? So first and foremost, online banking is really important technology, and that it will continue to innovate and change how we bank and our financial behaviors. Second, UX research is at the forefront of strategy, innovation, and design at the bank. And another point as well is that UX research works cross-functionally, and that is by combining multiple research methods to gain a holistic understanding of what the problem space is, and as well, of course, working with designers, strategists, product owners, developers, and all those different teams in order to develop a solution. And last, the impact of UX research affects all types of clients on a mass scale. So not just a specific niche of people, and also the impact of the business, which is the bank, and the design of the experience. And that is about it for me. This concludes our little journey. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope you learned something new today. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. That was very interesting to get a little bit of insight into how bank UI UX researchers do. There's a bit of a delay here with the comments, so we can wait like maybe 10 seconds to see if there's any questions that pop up in the chat. But in the meantime, I just want to say these are some cool animations on your slides here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Did you make them?
No, I did not. I should have lied and said yes, but I knew I was facing a bunch of designers, and I didn't want to put Times New Roman on a slide. So I harnessed the powers of Canva and put this together. So hopefully gets the point across.
Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be any questions in the chat right now. But I have a few questions of my own. So yeah. I'll ask mine first. So. Mm-hmm. Bank is like a really big institute, and there's a lot of things you need to, I'm guessing that there's a lot of things you need to consider when building a website or app that so many people of different age group and like gender uses. So how big is the product design team when working on a certain type of app or a website?
Great question. So the way that, well, I can't speak for other banks, but for our bank, the way CIBC works is that there's different pods assigned to a specific product. And so, for example, the website belongs to the .com team. So anything related to the website, they handle. And then there's mobile. And then within mobile, there's, I don't know if you bank with CIBC, but there's different features within the mobile banking app that also belong to a specific pod, and each pod has their own set of designers. Now, with our team and for research, we're just one team. So we get kind of like outsourced whenever there's a problem that needs to be solved within each of these pods.
Oh, so it's like there's multiple designing teams, but there's like one research team that kind of gets integrated into different part of the design teams. Is that correct?
Yes, a bit, but there are actually other research teams at the bank, but we're at the digital side. So as I mentioned, I'm from the digital strategy and innovation team. So we handle all things digital. Now, with UX research, there's also the frontline tools and frontline tools, which I've mentioned that UX research also touches upon. They have their own set of product designers, and they have their own research team as well. So we don't really interact in terms of our products crossing because they're working primarily with internal technologies, whereas we're working more with client-facing products.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I use online banking, so this is very like relating to like how I organize my money, I guess. So this is
yeah,
cool to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. Online banking is so important. I like just thinking when I was putting this together and just thinking back, what would have our world been like if we didn't have online banking during the pandemic last year? Could we have survived? Imagine if we had to do like deliveries and online deliveries or no Amazon orders. No,
that's very true.
Yeah.
We got a question from Lauren. So she asks, if someone was interested in working in UX research, where would you recommend they start, or key skills they need in this space?
For sure. So sorry, let me just debug this question. So if you're interested in UX research, where would you recommend to start? Key skills you need in the space. Okay, great question. So really with research, I guess I should start with what skills do you need? So with research, you need to, also depends on like what background are you coming from? Are you coming from design background? Are you coming from a background with like no research experience? Or if you're coming from economics or biomed, if you have some form of research experience where you've conducted literature review, or if you've conducted like an interview, that helps. Use that and create like present your research in a way where you've outlined the objectives, what research methods did you use, what were your findings, and how did it help? And then use that and present it to other researchers who are already in the field. And then they can help you craft your storytelling for your research. And it's also a good way to network with people in the field, because UX research is such a niche, skill right now, and it's such a niche group of people within the UX realm. So it's a very small community. And if you wanted a job there, it's a lot easier to move in that way if you have the visibility with other researchers already in the field. And if you don't have any of these research backgrounds or research projects, you could always just start one yourself. So perhaps conduct a heuristic evaluation, right? Take a website and look for the different ways or the different issues a website might have, and then present a case of how can we improve this website? How can we improve this experience? And then create a portfolio piece out of that, following the same outline. What is the objective? What is the research method you use? What will you do next time to improve your own research methods? What are the possible constraints for the recommendations that you made? And then from there, again, present it to other people. But really, what's really important, I guess the main takeaway from this is get visibility for your research, get feedback, because research isn't always right and you need other people's feedback to make it better. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I found it helpful. Like, I think it's a really interesting idea to kind of take a website and kind of start your own research if you don't have any access to any other ones. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And like in this world of UX, you could create a portfolio piece out of your own ideas. Or if you have like a side project that you're passionate about, start doing like exploratory research or discovery research. Is there an appetite for this idea that you have? And just do it yourself, and like that's where everything begins.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to start.
Yeah, and we have another question from Jacqueline. She asks, how does the UX research methodology look like at the bank? Do you work in sprints?
Great question. So in terms of methodology, I went over this earlier, but we do conduct both qualitative and quantitative research. So I focus primarily on the qualitative side of research. However, I am trained in mixed method research. So in terms of qualitative, we do a lot of usability testing. Because of the pandemic, we do primarily remote everything. So remote usability testing, remote concept testing, remote user interviews. There is possibility to do in-person interviews once like pandemic or this lockdown is over. There's also opportunity to conduct diary studies, ethnographies, which are field studies or observations. You can sit outside the bank and just watch people how they like go in and out, and perhaps you could be designing for the experience of the in-branch experience, right? What else is there? There's card sorting, which of course I'm sure you know, with trying to figure out what the best organization is for an IA, so information architecture. There's loads more other methodologies that we use, but those are the primary ones that we often dabble in, or that we most likely use, and depending on what the project is. And the second question, do you work in sprints? Yes and no. So there is a dedicated team that just does sprints, and that is the what are they called? The design innovation team, which is our Sprint Zero team. And we, for the project that I just proposed, we worked on a 6-week long sprint for that one. Not all teams work in sprints. I will say if I'm not working a project with that team, it's more segmented. So for example, I would just conduct a usability test and hand it off to the team that's working on that specific product. And once that's done, that's done. And then after they iterate it, they'll come back and give it back to me to do more testing. But that's primarily how we do it. For my team, at least.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That was a good insight into that. I like, it might be a stupid question, but what are sprints? Is that like the method of working?
Yes, it's like yes, it is like a method of working. So for ours, it depends on like what company you're working with. Some companies have shorter sprints, some have longer, like ours is 6 weeks. So for with this team that I work with, our sprint goes each week, we do something different. So the first week would be discovery. So we're doing, I'm doing discovery research. So that would be your secondary research, pulling different reports, trying to understand what the problem space is. And then after that, we go into workshop week. Workshop week is then when I take the research that I found and then I present it to the stakeholders. And then we try to ideate on what the different, we ideate, for example, who are our clients? We do a persona development workshop, or we do a research alignment workshop where we align on what the assumptions are for our persona, which are our target audience. What are the research questions that we want to ask? And we use the outputs from these workshops and bring them into our third stage, which is our third week, week 3 to 5, depending on how long it takes, which is testing. So the designers that I would have worked with and during the workshop week, they would take those ideas that they came up with, and then they would create a prototype, and I would test those prototypes with participants. And then from there, with the findings, we then bring it to our last week, which is showcase week, and we present them to our stakeholders as well as a lot of the higher ups at the company or at the bank, because then they would have visibility on whether or not this product needs to go into our pipeline, and when do we need to develop this, how much would it cost, and things like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it's like a jargon used to describe the working progress, I guess.
Yes, it's like a methodology. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's nice to know. We've got another question from Erica. She asks, how do you choose the group to test usability?
Great question. So before you choose a group to test the usability of a design, you need to first go back to whoever sent or what the product is about and ask them, or if it's your design, ask yourself, who is this for? So if you're testing something for example, the case that I presented earlier, that product was for newcomers to Canada. So obviously, I would need to go look for newcomers who recently arrived to Canada and ask them what their experiences are about. So it would really depend on who your target audience is or who you're designing for. And that's primarily how you choose what group to test. Now, if your product is very, like open for everyone, kind of like, let's say you're designing a product for, you're designing a chair, for example, right? Anyone can sit on this chair as long as you don't have a certain impairment. So you would your criteria for screening would be very broad. And well, if you're testing a chair, you probably need to do it in person. It's going to be really difficult to do a usability test on a chair virtually, but essentially it would be like that. I hope that answers questions. I just realized I kind of went sideways there.
It made sense to me, so hopefully it made sense to Erica as well. There doesn't seem to be any questions popping, so if you don't mind, I have some questions again.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, as a bank, it's my money, so it's very important that UX research or the product design team would have to consider privacy like very much because it would be very important. How much, like what percentage of, I guess, design thinking encompasses like the concept of privacy when you're designing an app or a website? I don't know if that made much sense, but
No, for sure. You're asking how much do we consider privacy, whatever we're designing or coming up with a product or strategy for something, right? Is that what you were trying to ask? Okay, great. Privacy is always like top 3 things to consider. And it's something super important, especially when you're in the bank. Once you lose the trust in our clients, it's game over, right? So privacy is always number 1 for us. Before we do anything, we always have to send it over to, or we would have the privacy people, the security, AML, which is anti-money laundering. They would always sit in our meetings and making sure that whatever we design is aligning with what our framework is for maintaining privacy and security and all these. But it always goes through an audit. There's never a time when we're just like, okay, let's design this, and then hopefully people are okay with this concept. That's very bad, and we want to reduce that risk.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering, like,
great question though. You'd be surprised. Some people still don't trust the bank, but that's not just like CIBC, but it's just in general. If you meet someone in the street, ask them, do you trust banks? Sometimes they may say no.
I'm just taking a look at the chat if there's any questions. There doesn't seem to be any more. So if you're good, I think we're good to wrap up now.
No. Yep, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you for kind of just mediating this conversation. It's been totally great. And you've been so amazing at it.
Thank you so much, Margaret, for, I guess, joining our event. It's been wonderful. Hope you also, I guess, join some of our other events as well. And also, this is going to be posted on YouTube so that people who missed it can take a look at it later on.
Great. Hopefully it goes viral. I'm just joking.
Okay, so that'll be it for this event. So thank you very much, everyone who came to this event. That'll be all.
All right. Thank you.